wonderful good morning. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here today and to talk about green bonds. As you can understand, being the CSO, that is a topic which is very near to my heart. Yesterday, we heard a lot about green bonds and green financing already. So you have already information. And I have to say I'm very impressed. I was very impressed with the presentation of Towngas, one of the first mover in this market on the green bond market side here in Asia. And today I would like to talk about green bond, why they matter for sustainability across capital markets. Green bonds, why they matter. And here I need your help. And I hope you are ready for Slido. Can you please tell me whether you already are invested, intend to invest, or issued a green bond? This is great. So I only have to convince 60% of you today that maybe green bond is a good investment. So I just remember 5 years ago, I was sitting in my Paris office on the boardroom table, and I discussed with my colleagues about a new project, a green bond fund. And then I told them about green bonds, and I looked around, and the only thing I could see was a sea of blank faces. And they asked me, "What are you talking about?" So it took me quite some coffees, and in Europe, you know, we always have conversation over coffees, to convince then the company in order to issue right to the COP21 our first green bond fund. So what is a green bond? A green bond is nothing else than a normal bond. The only difference is the commitment of the issuer to finance a green project. Not more and not less. And what defines a green project? What defines a green project? Well, the green bond principles define a green project for a green bond fund. And they have been developed by ISMA, the International Capital Market Organization Association, in 2014. And you have it here. What defines a green bond fund at the end is that all green projects are designed to provide a clear environmentally and sustainable benefit. The issuer has also to outline how he selects the projects and what his internal process is. And the management of proceeds, that means what the green liabilities are for and how they match with the green assets in the issuer balance, is of paramount importance. And reporting, of course, is very, very important as well. And what does it mean, reporting? It means that once a year the issuer has to report on the progress, what he does with the money. He has to report on the use of the proceeds, but also on the unallocated proceeds. And he has to report on the progress of the projects with their environmental impacts and targets. And that is really important. And lately, and especially with the new regulation which comes out in the European Union, the taxation, we need also an external verification, so that everyone understands what the money is used for and what happened with your money. And that is a huge difference to a normal bond, right? When you give a corporate money, you don't know what they are doing with the money. You hope that they do the right thing, and they will, of course, report, but they will not report especially what they do with this money. Here, you can follow. You really see what they are doing and whether they follow their promises. And I think this is a huge difference between a normal bond and a green bond. But now let's have a look to what are the eligible projects for a green bond. And here, Allianz is a partner of the Climate Bond Initiative since 2015. And they provide science-based assessments on project financed through a green bond issuance. And that is what it is about. So a green bond can be issued to help renewable energy, wind, solar, geothermal and biofuels. A green bond can be issued for energy efficiency systems and infrastructure. A green bond, of course, can be issued for the emission reduction of greenhouse gases. and for sustainable land use and waste management, biodiversity conservation, clean transportation, and clean water and or drinking water. But just to tell you that most of the funds which we have today, most of the bonds we have today in the market are really on the three first parts: renewable energy, energy efficiency, and greenhouse gas emission. But this all is really here to help the climate change, and of course all the consequences which are coming along if we don't get and don't reach the climate agreement, the Paris Agreement goals. Because once the world is getting warmer and warmer, I think the social consequences, as we all know, are dramatic. Just one thing maybe to tell you is that there was 20,000 years ago a time when the Earth was really covered by ice to a big extent. And the sea level at that time was 120 meters lower. So if we continue with our climate story and we heat further, then you can imagine what happens. At the moment in my hometown, my house is at 300 meter level, but if this will be the case, I don't have to travel 1,000 kilometers to find the next beach. I maybe have to go only 20 minutes. And I think this is not good. But is it really that terrible? Let us have a look to the CO2 emission by region. You have seen the charts yesterday, I guess, shortly, but I would like to comment on it again in order to show how important it is to do something here. This is the annual CO2 emission by the world regions. And as you see, and I hope you all can see it, since the industrialization started, 1815 and then 1900, we saw a massive increase in CO2 emissions, right? And while it was first only in the developed world, now it's in the developing world. And there's a clear reason for this, which is that, of course, they are now the work bank for us and produce things. But there is also another reason, because developing countries would like to reach the level and the living standard of the developed world. And if we all would like to live on a standard of United States of today, and I may lead you to the left-hand or right-hand chart, then we would need the resources of 5 Earths. And I guess you all agree with me that is not sustainable. And so that is not only not sustainable, think about what kind of CO2 emission we would have. I don't want to even think about it. And man-made or not, this is not a question here. I think it's time to act. And also the central banks, they founded a central bank and supervisory authority, a network for greening the financial system, because they are quite concerned. Because they think if this continues, we will have also massive risk for the financial stability. So, time to act. There are voices who tell, and even the United Nations, I have to say, is a little concerned meanwhile, that we will not be able to achieve the goals they set until 2030. Well, I'm a positive person, and I always believe you can do things if you really want to do them. And of course, it needs a lot of action, and we have to work together. But I thought, okay, was there maybe a case in history where we had a similar difficult situation and we managed to get over? Yes, I found one. You may remember that was about the ozone depletion, the ozone shield depletion, which started in the 70s, 1970s. And of course, this was something which would have led to severe consequences for everyone on Earth. And because they understood it was the CFC, or the chlorofluorocarbon, which was the major issue here, 197 countries agreed 1987 in the Montreal Agreement that to phasing out the CFC. And as you may see, it works. In the year 2030, the Northern Hemisphere should be fine. The shield should be again okay. And for the southern one, they believe that by 2060 it will be okay. And the United States or U.S. Environmental Protection Agency also came up with a report where they said that the treaty prevented 280 million cases of skin cancer and at least 1.5 million of deaths from skin cancer. So you see what we all can avoid and can do if we work together and do the right thing. And moreover, they had then also a Kigali amendment, which aims to reduce the CFC by 2050 by 80% because they found out that the CFC is also one of the greenhouse gases. And that will save us 0.4 degree until the year 2100. So it works. There are possibilities to make it happen, and we should really think about that. And if we come now to savings, everyone has to says, okay, we have to save emission, we have to save emission. Yes, of course, we have to save. But my grandmother always said, when I said I have to save money, I want to buy something, she said, no, you have to earn more. And earn more in this case means that that we have to think about innovation. Because what happened here, if you have today a spray for your hair or whatever, if you use it, you don't feel any difference to the time when they just started to have the first innovation. So innovation is possible, but innovation, of course, is expensive. We need a lot of money. And here I have the next Slido. I would like to ask you, how much do you think, how much money do we need in order to transition to a low-carbon and climate-resilient economy? Okay, thank you very much. 60 trillion, that's the estimation. So most of you got it completely right. And how do we get this money together? Because it's a lot, isn't it? It's 2/3 of today's market capitalization on the bond side, globally. So we are talking here really about money. So here the financial industry comes in because for us, of course, we are able to mobilize the financial sector in order to come up with solutions such as the Green Bond Fund, in order to gather money or to help the transition to a low carbon economy. And I would like now to look to the green bond market and the development of the green bond market so far. The green bond market started in 2007, but in 2007 it was a tiny, not even existing market. And what I have here are the issuance over the years, starting in 2013, because in 2013 we had 11 billion issuance, and it was by a supranational. And then you see that the market further developed until today. And today I'm really happy because already this year we surpassed the issuance of last year. That means this year we have seen 173 billion new issuance in green bonds, and we hope and we believe that by the year end we may end at 200. That means we have today a market of 680 billion in almost 12 years. Just to compare, this is one of the segments which is the fastest growing segments in the capital markets and on the bond side, and I just wanted to bring a comparison. So I looked to a market which has a similar size, and that is the convertible market. The global convertible market today has around 550 to 600 billion. But you know how long it needed to come to this? The first convertible bond was issued 150 years ago. So that gives you an idea about the speed of this market and how it developed. And if you look to the colors which I have here, you see that today, at the beginning, we had really supranationals, but then, of course, corporates understood that they can use green bonds in order to finance their transition to a low carbon, and also assure their business models. And governments lately, and this is the red part on the top, came in and issued green bonds in order to finance their promise which they gave on to the Paris Agreement. The market started to develop when standards kicked in. As you see, ICMA standards, which I mentioned on one of my first slides, came in 2014 and gave a little bit more meat to the bones to better understand what is a green bond and when a bond can be called green bond. The PPC standards came in already in 2015, and I have to say they were even better than the standards we had in Europe, because in their standards they had already reporting requirements, which we didn't have. And of course now the whole world is waiting for taxonomy, because the European Commission is also looking to the green bond standards, and we will have by the end of the year new standards, and we will have also the requirements for corporates to report in a standardized way, so that we can really show what a green bond at the end is achieving in terms of climate transition support. And the financial industry, how can we bring these green bonds to our clients? Because, as you know, 60 trillion is a lot of money. We have to finance it, and just having pension funds or a few bigger association going in and buying green bonds will not help us and will not bring the money together. I don't think that we need a 60 trillion in green bonds. That would be, of course, super cool, but that would be 2/3 of the market, the bond market today, and I don't see this. But I guess it could become really an essential part of the markets. And what I learned in my life is you only can be successful if both parts benefit. And one part, of course, is the world, it's the earth, which should benefit, but the other part is, of course, the person who invests, because if you don't have a decent outcome, we all have to live, we all have to pay our rent, so we need to have a return. So for the financial industry, it is important to create solutions which have both in mind. So a return for the clients and a benefit for the world. And on the green bond side, you may think, okay, ESG and all of what we hear about it, is it really about return enhancement, or do we get the same return as we would get if we would invest in a normal bond? Yesterday we had already a few recognition here as saying, no, today it's different. Green ESG can even enhance return. And I wish to show you how the green bond market did in terms of performance against a normal bond market. And here we are. I compared the Bloomberg Barclays Global Green Bond Index total return, hedged in US dollar, with the Barclays Global Aggregate Total Return Index and the Bloomberg Barclays US Total Return. And when did I start with this? Well, we registered our fund this year in the United States. And the first question I had in the United States, guess what it was? What about return? It was less about the green side, it was really what about return. And so we did this, and as you can see, the green, of course, is the green bond, returned quite nice, and the behaving of the green bond, exactly what I said at the beginning, it's just a normal bond which has different features, is the same. That means volatility almost the same. One difference is the duration. The green bond has a slightly longer duration than the other bond markets. It's about 9 years versus 8 versus 7. And that's it. So that looks not bad, right? So clients could expect a return when they invest in green bonds. And they don't have to sacrifice. And even I think if the market continues to grow, it would be great if institutional investor would take a part of their normal egg portfolio out and replace it with green bond eggs, because it fits absolutely great into the portfolios and the asset allocation. But then, of course, we have, thank you. I hope you could hear me so far. And then, of course, we have to think about, but wait a minute, green bonds are not only about return, they are also to have a social benefit somehow. And how can we see and measure the social benefit of a green bond fund? Here we are. I took our green bond fund here, because there I can tell you what we do, and of course that is a fund which already has a 4-year track record, so we can measure, and that is real world and real life. And you see here, these are the Sustainable Development Goals, and the green is you can't see it all, it's the climate action, right? And the green bond fund is contributing 100% to the climate action. But besides this, he also has 8 other goals where this fund contributes. And the big one is affordable and clean energy, as we expect this fund to do, and also then sustainable cities and communities. That's nice to see. But there is maybe more to learn, because you have to explain your clients, so what about CO2? What about the emission? And how is this fund, or how is your investment contributing to the emission part? And that is here. This fund, if you invest 1 million for 1 year, takes 969 tons of emission, avoids 969 tons of emission, or sequestrates this. And when I saw this, and I thought about tons of CO2, I mean, this is something which is not touchable, right? What is a ton of CO2? You have an idea what a ton of CO2 is? I haven't had a ton. So I had this wonderful Sunday afternoon, and I was sitting with my husband there. I said, what the hell is a ton of CO2? And he looked at me and said, what are you now? The CSO? Did you ever think about to calculate your own carbon footprint? Because if you calculate your carbon footprint, you understand what it is. And do you know your personal footprint? This is amazing, because when I asked this question in Europe, I can tell you almost nobody knew the carbon footprint. They asked me, how can I do it? I said, go in Google, no problem. And now we are preparing an app in order to make it easier, because it's quite complicated. I can tell you my carbon footprint. The average German footprint is 8.8. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit higher, right? I'm 12. And in Hong Kong, the carbon footprint, the average one is 6.5, sorry. So this is, of course, and so I guess the one with the 15 tons, well, and why do I ask you? Because I think it's not only to buy green bonds. I think it's also important to understand what you do, by what every one of us does, and how we may reduce a little bit our footprints, beside, of course, investing maybe in a green bond fund, which helps you to reduce it and gives you an income. And I found this a very interesting calculation. Thank you for this. But also, if you look to the 969 tons, it takes an emission of 412,746 liters of gasoline fuel out of the air, or 116 homes' annual energies used. So this is quite a big amount, right? So green bond work. They give you a financial return, but also they do something good for the world. And now I would like to thank you for having me here, and also for listening to me, and for doing something good, because some of you already invest in green bonds, which I like. And I think the health of our planet is really near to our heart. And without saving the planet, I think we will not have any more a financial market. And I come to the topic which I had at the beginning. My title was Green Bonds, Why They Matter for Sustainability Across Capital Markets. Well, if we don't get it right, we'll not have a capital market anymore. So green bonds matter. And before I go, I would like to give you 5 words which you may remember. Go and buy green bonds. Thank you very much.
Allianz Global Investors.